The Doing the Orden podcast is brought to you by Baldwin Park Pizza Company. Baldwin Park Pizza Company has been serving Joey's original recipe for over 20 years. It's voted #1 pizza in San Gabriel Valley 6 years running. Come visit or get delivery.
Me and my very special guest, Scorpio Sky, are coming to you from Baldwin Park Pizza Company here in Baldwin Park, California. And this restaurant has been serving Joey's original recipe for over 20 years now. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast. So, hi Scorpio, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a guest on my podcast today. So let's get started. So, were you a fan of wrestling growing up?
I was a huge fan of wrestling growing up. As long as I can remember growing up, there was Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Bret the Hitman Hart with the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, of course Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and the Macho Man. The list, I can go on all day. I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid.
Okay, so those are lists of some of your favorites? Or?
Absolutely. And there's going to be some that I haven't even named, obviously, Sting and Ric Flair, and I watched as much wrestling as I can find as a kid. Any type of wrestling, I was always flipping through the channels. I was always picking up the pro wrestling illustrated magazines and reading about all these names. And I'm sure a lot of kids do the same thing nowadays, and it's cool to see the tradition live on.
Okay, so how did you get started in professional wrestling?
When I was about 16 years old, I went to Jesse Hernandez's wrestling school in San Bernardino, California. It was called the School of Hard Knocks. And I trained there for a couple of weeks, and I was still in high school, so it was really hard to get back and forth because it was a good 45 minutes away from where I lived, and I didn't drive at the time. So I had to finish school, and while I was in college, I actually started training with another school called the Rudo's Dojo from a company that was locally here in Southern California known as Revolution Pro under Ron Rivera, aka American Wild Child, and others that were a lot of wrestlers out here in SoCal. And I trained with them for about a year, and I started wrestling in 2002.
Okay, so you said you trained with them. How long, approximately how long did you train before you first had your first match?
It was about a year. I started in August of 2001 training, and I had my match in, I believe it was June or July of 2002. So they really made us work hard and earn our way into the ring and make. At the time, the school had a very good reputation locally here in Southern California for putting out very talented wrestlers, and the shows were always loaded with great matches and great wrestlers, so they took that very serious. So they wanted to make sure that we were ready by the time we got in the ring instead of just putting us out there to see what happens.
So who was your first match against?
My first match after all the training was against Top Gun Talwar. It's not a name I expect you to recognize. He hasn't wrestled for a while out here, but he was one of the mainstays at the time, and we had a pretty good match.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we're good? Okay. So did you do any other sport prior to wrestling?
When I was in high school, I did a little bit of wrestling for the actual wrestling team, the amateur wrestling. Other than that, I didn't play any sports officially. I was always playing basketball with my friends, or actually wrestling around in backyards and stuff with my friends, playing soccer and that sort of thing. But I never actually competed, and I wasn't on any official teams once I was older. When I was a kid, I played on soccer teams and baseball teams and that sort of thing, but not as I got older. I was just so into wrestling. I was one track mind. That's all I wanted to do.
Okay, so do you train any other martial arts?
It's been a while since I've actually trained in martial arts, but I for years trained in mixed martial arts, whether it be jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, judo, different arts forms, and I've actually had a couple of fights as well. So wrestling keeps me a little bit too busy nowadays to do it, but it was something I really enjoyed doing.
Okay, so up to now, who has been your favorite opponent to wrestle? There can be several.
Okay, as long as you said there can be several. I have to say the Young Bucks are at the very top of the list. Those guys are so talented, and they have such a strong fan base that when you're wrestling against them, the crowd is always going to be electric. So those are always fun matches. A guy back in the day named Scott Lost, another name I don't expect you to remember. He was unbelievable. He was so good. If you ever get a chance, look at some old PWG tapes, look up Scott Lost. He was excellent and definitely one of my favorite opponents there. And nowadays Peter Avalon is one of my favorites. He's been a guy I've wrestled several times over the years, and he's definitely one of my favorites. Ryan Taylor, these guys.
Okay, so how did the SCU first start?
It's funny. We had the group. Well, we were planning to do the group, actually, for starters, with myself, Christopher Daniels, and Frankie Kazarian. And we were always bouncing around names, and we were trying to figure out what name we wanted to go with. And we kept coming back to a joke that actually Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks made, of saying, you guys should just be SoCal Uncensored, and which is a website actually out here in Southern California. And so we joked about it, and then eventually the joke turned into reality, and we ended up just being SoCal Uncensored. And so we were always backstage. We were always kind of walking through the dressing room before shows, shouting SCU, SCU, and the Bucks would do it, SCU. Cody would do it, SCU. It just became our thing. And so we just started doing it on Being the Elite, and it's kind of caught on now. So.
Okay. So can you name some of the promotions that you have worked for?
Okay. There have been a lot of them. So, Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Bar Wrestling, Revolution Pro Wrestling, the old one here in California, Alternative Wrestling Shop, which is AWS. I've worked for Impact Wrestling. I worked with WWE for a short period of time. Oh, who else is out there that I'm forgetting about? Wrestle Circus, a company in Texas I really enjoyed working for. Defy in Seattle, great company, really enjoyed working for them. There's so many. There's so many. I'm gonna forget. If I keep going, I'm gonna name off a bunch of them, and I'm gonna leave some out, and people are gonna be upset with me. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so we've reached the end of the podcast here. It's really short. Is there any way people can follow you on your social media?
Yes, absolutely. People can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Scorpio Sky. ScorpioSky.com is also available, and you can follow me or like my Facebook fan page, and that's facebook.com/ScorpioSky.com. That's DOTCOM.
Okay. Well, again, we've reached the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Scorpio, for being a guest on my podcast today.
My pleasure.